In this French grammar lesson, you will learn how to identify ER verbs. You also learn how to conjugate them in present tense. And towards the end of the video, you will learn some special cases of ER verbs. Allons-y. Now, ER verbs are simply verbs that end in ER. It's as simple as that. Example, look at this verb, chanter. Chanter. Can you repeat that? Chanter. All right, chanter ends in ER. That's why it's an ER verb. Parler. Parler. Parler ends in ER. That's why it's an ER verb. Demander. Demander. Demander ends in ER. So it's an ER verb. And the last one, travailler. Travailler. Travailler, you can see it ends in ER. So that's why we call them ER verbs. Okay, so it's as simple as that. ER verbs end in ER. Now let's do a quick quiz. Look at this verb. Oublier. Oublier. Is it an ER verb? Why? Super. Oublier means to forget. Okay, it's an ER verb because it ends in ER. Let's look at one more verb. This one. Casser. To break. Casser. Is it an ER verb? Why? Of course, because it ends in. Bravo, because it ends in ER. Now you should know that there's an exception. The only verb that ends in ER, but is not in this category of verbs, is the verb aller. 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 Aller means to go, and even though it ends in ER, it's regarded as an irregular verb, okay? So you should know that the only verb that ends in ER, but is not an ER verb, is an irregular verb, is the verb aller. Now that you can identify ER verbs, now let's learn how to conjugate them in present tense. Now, I like this particular method because it's step by step. Now, the first step is to write the personal pronouns, okay? Write out your personal pronouns. And in French, we have je, I, tu, that's you, il, that's he, elle, that's she, on. I'm going to explain this much later. Nous. Okay, nous means we. Okay. Vous. Vous means you. Now, I'm sure you want to know what's the difference between tu and vous. I'm going to explain this later. Okay. Il, elle. Now, did you notice I didn't pronounce the S at the end of ILS, il and L? I didn't say ils, else, or I didn't say nous, vous. That's because in French, when a word ends in a consonant, usually the consonant is silent. There are exceptions to this rule, but generally in French, when it ends in a consonant, you don't pronounce it. Okay, that's why I'm not pronouncing nous as nous, vous, ils, else. Okay, so step one, you write out your personal pronouns, and these are the personal pronouns in French. Now, step two is to remove the ER from the infinitive form of the verb. So let's take the verb parler, for instance. Okay, parler. So step one, we write out our personal pronouns like this, and then step two, we remove the ER. So what is left is called the root, okay? La racine, the root, okay? So you remove the ER at the end of the infinitive form of the verb, and then you add the root to the personal pronouns, okay? Like I said, I like it step by step, okay? Step one, write out your personal pronouns. Step two, you remove the ER at the end of the infinitive form of the verb, and then you add the root to the personal pronouns like this. Okay, good. And now step three, which is the final step, is to add the endings. So ER verbs have particular endings that you have to memorize. Okay, so for je, just add E to the root. Okay, so we have je parle. For tu is ES, so just add ES. So you have tu parles. For il, elle, and on is I. So just add I. So il parle, elle parle, on parle. Okay? On parle. Okay? For nous is ONS. So just add ONS to the root. Okay? For vous is EZ. So just add EZ. And for il ou elle, that's the plural, just add ENT. It's as simple as that. And with this, you've successfully conjugated the verb parler. Bravo. In present tense. Okay, so you have je parle. So you can say je parle français. I speak French. Je parle 3 langues. I speak 3 languages. Okay? Now you can say tu parles anglais? Do you speak English? Tu parles français? Do you speak French? Okay? Tu parles. Il parle espagnol. He speaks espagnol. Elle parle avec ses voisins. Elle parle avec ses voisins. She speaks with her neighbors. Nous parlons. Nous parlons. Vous parlez. Il parle. Elle parle. Okay? Now note again that je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, on parle. They all sound alike. So it's parle. Even if there's S at the end of parle here, you don't pronounce it. Okay? It's still parle. Same thing for they. Il ou elle, plural. Even though it ends in ENT, don't pronounce the ENT at all. Okay? And your brain just feel as if it's silent. Okay? So when you're reading this, don't say parlent or parlons. No, it's parle. Okay? Parle. Now I said I was going to explain the difference between tu and vous. Very simple. You use tu when you're referring to your friends, your family, your children, animals, or in informal situations. Okay, so if you're talking to your friend, you wanted to ask your friend if she spoke English, you could say tu parles anglais. But if you were talking to a stranger or someone you like to maintain a certain degree of respect or distance, then you use vous. So if you're talking to a stranger, for instance, ideally, if you wanted to ask them if they spoke French, you say, excusez-moi, vous parlez français? Vous parlez français? Vous parlez anglais? Okay, why? Because they're strangers. Okay, so that's really the main difference between tu and vous. And of course, tu is also used for one person, while vous, you can use vous for more than one person. So if you're referring to 2 of your kids or 3 of your friends, you can say vous. So if you're talking to your friends, you can say vous parlez anglais. That means you're referring to more than one person. On can mean one, it can mean we, it can mean they. So for instance, if I say ici, on parle français. Ici, on parle français. So it could mean here we speak French. It could mean here they speak French. I can say, au Nigeria, on mange egusi. Au Nigeria, on mange egusi. Meaning in Nigeria, we eat egusi. So on there means, it could mean we, it could mean they, it could mean one. Depending on the context is being used and who is speaking. Okay, so there are more explanation, more examples in my blog here. Now, can you do this quick quiz? Bravo. So how many did you get correctly? Oh, great. Bravo. Now, before we look at some special cases, can you translate this expression to French? I cut the bread. I cut the bread. The verb to cut in French is couper. Couper. So you can see it's an ER verbs. So how would you say I cut the bread? Yeah, you know the bread in French is le pain. Le pain. So what do you say? Je coupe. Do I add S at the end of coupe? No, because je only takes E. Bravo. Okay, je coupe le pain. Bravo. What if I wanted to say, he speaks Spanish? How would I translate that to French? He speaks Spanish. You know, the verb to speak is parler. You know, il parle espagnol. Do I need to add S at the end of parle? No, okay, because il ou elle ou on takes only E. Wow, bravo. Now let's look at some special cases. The first case is for verbs that start with a vowel. or a mute H, like apporter, like habiter, like aimer, like écouter. These verbs start with a vowel or a mute H. So the only difference is that in the je form, the E will elide and turn to an apostrophe. Okay? Let's give concrete examples. So you know the rules. You write your personal pronouns to conjugate the verb aimer, for instance. You write out your personal pronouns, and then you remove the ER at the end of the verb, and then you add the root, and then you add the endings. Okay? But now, for je aime, the rule says for je, you remove the E and you replace with an apostrophe. So instead of saying je aime, you say j'aime. Okay? So I could say j'aime le chocolat. I like chocolate. J'aime la France. I love France. Okay? Now for verbs ending in CER, like lasser, like remplacer, like commencer, like déplacer, the only thing you need to do, you follow the same step, the conjugation we learned earlier. The only thing you need to do is when you get to the new form, okay, you only add this accent to the C. Okay, the accent is called cédille, cédilla. Just add the accent, and that softens the k sound, and it turns it to s. So when we get to the new form, instead of us saying nous commençons, so the cédilla softens the k and turns it to s. So we say nous commençons. Okay, nous déplaçons, nous lassons. Okay, nous remplaçons, because of the cédille. Now let's do a quick quiz. For verbs ending in GER, the only thing you need to do is when you get to the new form like this, you write an E before the ONS. Okay? You write an E before the ONS. And why is this? It's also to soften the sound. Okay, take the verb manger, for instance, where we have manger, je mange, tu manges, il mange, elle mange, on mange, nous. So instead of saying nous mangons, okay? So we add an E, and then we have nous mangeons. Okay, nous mangeons. Okay, so this is the case for verbs that end in GER. So for verbs like acheter, for instance, okay, you have the vowel. If there's a vowel plus consonant plus ER, how do you conjugate them? Very easy. So the rule says just still the same thing. You write out your personal pronouns, you remove the ER, you add the root, and now the only thing you need to do for je, tu, and il, elle, on, you put an accent mark called l'accent grave. Okay, the grave accent. You put it on je, tu, and il ou elle, the forms, and the plural form, il ou elle plural, down here. Okay, but for vous and nous, you leave it the way it is. That's the only thing. Let's take the verb mener, for instance, mener. This is mener, je mène, okay? And then you put the accent mark. Je mène, tu mènes, il ou elle, ou on mène. But nous, menons. You don't put the accent mark. For vous, menez. Don't put the accent mark. Il ou elle, mène. Why is this so? Because before the ER, there's a consonant. And then before the consonant, there's a vowel. But as time goes on, you just learn this naturally. For verbs like appeler, rappeler, renouveler, let's take renouveler, for instance. Okay? So look at this. What do? Same rule. And then the rule says for je, tu, and il, we need to double the consonants. Okay? So we say je renouvelle, tu renouvelles, double L, il ou elle ou on renouvelle. But for the new form, it's just one L. Okay? So, nous renouvelons, vous renouvelez, and then il renouvelle, double L comes back, and elle renouvelle. Okay? Same thing for rappeler or appeler. Let's conjugate appeler. Okay, so we say j'appelle, okay, j'appelle, tu appelles, double L, il ou elle ou on appelle, double L. But for nous and vous, a single L, okay? Nous appelons, vous appelez, and for il ou elle, they plural, double L. Okay, so only for nous and vous will you have a single L. So I've written a detailed post on this with several examples, several quizzes, activities, exercises, even downloadable materials for you. It's on my blog. Just visit the blog here. I hope you've learned something new today. Merci et à la prochaine.